All right, so let's just quickly summarize what we know about professional skepticism. And so, as the title slide, it's you maintain an attitude that has a question in mind, critical assessment of the evidence. And the first question I asked was, what is professional skepticism? And so all of these, all of the above, basically. You neither assume that management is dishonest nor assumes an unquestioned honesty. And that's identified, it says that when it talks about professional skepticism in the standards. Now, I want to make a point about that. There's no standard that's called professional skepticism, right? So you won't go and say AU XXX, and that's the standard on professional skepticism. What you'll see is professional skepticism is woven throughout the standards. So for example, if we're talking about SAS 99, which is the auditor's response to fraud, risk assessment, right? That they'll talk about professional skepticism in that standard. They'll talk about professional skepticism in the risk standards. So it's woven throughout the standards. It means that the auditor makes a critical assessment. The auditor has a question in mind. It's the opposite of trust, right? And so, and this is the academic profession has done a lot of research on professional skepticism. In fact, one of my professors when I was at Wisconsin doing my PhD did her dissertation on professional skepticism. And she drew from the philosophy literature and then kind of applied that to, well, what does professional skepticism look like? So she developed a questionnaire or survey, and then based on how people addressed that survey, they were identified as either being highly skeptical or less skeptical, and then she applied that to auditors. She had auditors, practicing auditors, fill out her survey and then answer a case. And what she found was that auditors who, and I'm summarizing and paraphrasing, but auditors who were highly skeptical were, their judgment was more conservative, right? So they were least likely to align themselves with the client in her case. And I don't remember all of the details of the case, versus those auditors who were less skeptical were more likely to kind of concede to the client in some ways. But then there's this earlier research back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, where they look at trust. And so the trust scale has been used as a way to determine if are you more trusting? Because the idea there is if you're more trusting, then you're least likely to believe that the client is dishonest. Or accept the client, and you're more likely to accept the client's explanation of things. So trust has been also used to measure professional skepticism, versus if you're a person who is just distrustful by nature, you don't believe what people say anyway. So you're going to challenge them. You don't trust anything that's coming out of that person's mouth. So you're going to challenge them, right? And then is the propensity of an individual to defer concluding until the evidence provides sufficient support for one alternative explanation or the other. And that's Kathy Hurd, she's now at Baylor, but she was at a professor at Wisconsin when I was there. So all of these, if you look at the literature, the academic literature research on professional skepticism, you'll see more or less a lot of these definitions woven throughout the standards to indicate what we mean by professional skepticism.